YouTube, it's your boy, Sean Matrai here. We are back with post-Banlist Crystron. That's right. Post-Banlist. That means... Oh, let me hide that. That means we are past the ban list, and we have Crystron right here. Oh, let me get off that. So, the skill we're using is Mythic Death. This is SSA Crystron. And if you don't know what SSA means C Stealth Attack. As you can see in the lower right of the screen, we have C Stealth Attack. What C Stealth Attack does is, while Umi is on the field, first of all, if you have an Umi in the grave, you can activate it. And while Umi is on the field, you can use the following effects. You can banish a water monster you control. Face-up spell and traps cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So, if they have an MST, they cannot destroy your Umi. If this is already resolved, if they have an Infernoid Patrulia, they cannot destroy your Sea Stealth Attack or Umi. Things like that. Also, at the start of the damage step, if your water monster whose original level is 5 or higher battles an opponent's monster, destroy that monster. So, this is very useful against Mech Knights, because against Mech Knight, they're really going to have a hard time outing Sea Stealth Attack, because again, yellow can't pop it if you banish SSA. Their only way to really get rid of it is Unicorn, so they have to go all the way out of the way to do it, which is a good feeling for us. We're also playing one Citadel Whale. I'm going over the outside Crystron stuff first. So if this card's in your hand or graveyard, you tribute 2 water monsters to special summon this card, so we can go ahead and do that. Does not matter if they're face up or face down, so if they floodgate your tuner or activate like a book on your tuner or Canadia, you can still tribute anyway. And then you special summon it. When Citadel Whale is special summoned this way, and it can be from the hand or grave, so I'm going to discuss a way to get in the grave. You can set one Sea Stealth Attack from the deck. Also, when exactly one water monster is targeted, you can negate that effect and destroy it. So if they were to target your tuners or your water synchros with Compulse or Whale itself, Book of Moon, and other targeting effects that are in the game, Chalice, you can negate it and destroy that card. If they were to target with Requiem, you can negate and destroy the card. If they were to target it with Breaksword, you can negate and destroy the card. So there's really good ways to get around certain applications in the meta. And also sets Sea Stealth Attack from the deck. So that's a good way to gain access to it. Now, you're going to ask me, how do we get in the graveyard? Well, I'm going to go over the Crystron engine first, then I'll go over our different cards that can help us get to certain points we want to be at. Now, the first card we run is Crystrons Sulfefnir. Now, Sulfefnir is a level 5 Crystron. Now, the way Crystrons are is they're all machines. And when you use their effects on the field of like the smaller Crystrons, like your Rosenex, your Smiger, your Paraslayer, your Thisfern, they're going to lock you into summoning machine-type synchros. And not machine-type monsters, machine-type synchros. So you couldn't, like, exceed summon into, like, a Gear Gigant afterwards. You wouldn't be able to make, you know, the level 10, the link for machines. Let me look it up before I get confused. But you can't make the link for machines either. Yeah, so you can't make... You wouldn't be able to go into Anger Knuckle. So things like that you can't do after you pop with the Crystrons. You're locked in specifically Synchro Summoning. So that's basically the oversight of Crystrons. That's what they do on the forefront. But we're going to go over each of their individual effects. They also have an effect that activates in the grave. And they have an effect that activates on field. But you can only use one of those effects per turn. So think of Burning Abyss. It mostly relates to that. The same way if you special summon a BA from the hand, you can't activate the BA effect in grave. Whereas if you activate the BA effect in grave, you can't special summon that name from the hand. So things like that, it's kind of relation to the Crystrons. Alright, so first is Crystrons Self-Near. This card is an amazing play starter as it is an extender for the deck. If this card is in the hand or graveyard, you can discard one Crystron card. Any Crystron card can be impact, except Solve. Special summon this card from your graveyard or hand in defense, then destroy one card you control. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon the Crystron monster from the deck. So, the way you generally start off your plays is you dump Self off of Undine or Scrap, once you're able to do that, or activate it in the hand if you open it. Once you're able to do that, you can discard a Crystron, special summon itself, pop itself, and summon a Crystron on the deck. Really good starter and really good play extender. And this thing remaining in the graveyard means you could use its effect every turn. So you have an infinite resource generator, which is absolutely fantastic. Next, we have Crystron Disvern. So Disvern is one of the smaller ones. This one has an effect on field, as it does in hand. In graveyard. So on field, they all have the same effects. I'm not going to go over it for the same Crystron over and over and over again. You target one face-up card you control, destroy it, and if you do, so the card must be destroyed to resolve the effect, you can special summon one Crystron tuner from your deck in attack or defense position. So, you target something like an Umi on your field, you destroy it, you can special summon out Citri, Rion, Quan, we don't play Quan, out of your deck, and then you are able to be locked afterwards into machine type synchros only. And that's what I was referring to before. And it's the same first effect for Smiger, Crosshair, and Rosenex. They all have that same first effect. So you need to keep that in mind. Don't try to pop with this Vern, summon out a Rion, and make a Coral Dragon, because that's not going to work. You're locked into things like Exectron, Quarion, Amatrix, stuff like that. Samurai Destroyer if we were playing. But we have limited extra deck space, so there's only a limited amount. But the important thing is its graveyard effect. While this card's in your graveyard, you can banish it, add one Crystron monster for your deck to your hand. That is fantastic. So it allows you to generate follow-up. So if you discard it off of Self-Near to summon a Crystron on the deck, you also get to add follow-up to your hand. Or potentially a normal summon extender or something like that. That could be really good as well. Next, we are playing Crystron Smiger. Smiger in graveyard banishes itself to add a Crystron spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You cannot add Crystallic Potential. Nobody plays that. That card is absolute garbage, but it's just something you need to know. You can add entry or impact. The only Crystron trap or spell we are playing is impact. And impact is very, very powerful, because we'll go over it once we get to it. But the main important thing with Smiger is he searches impact. And that's very, very good. Very, very useful. So you really want to use this Verdant Smiger because they maximize you out an advantage you're going to be able to generate. Next we have our tuners. And the two we play are Citri and Rion. Now what Crystron Citri does, unless you've been living... Well, I should say living on a rock, because this deck hasn't been very popular. So, your Crystron tuners, what they do is they can one card synchro summon. That's what makes them special. They can, each tuner special summons a non-tuner from a specific area. So, for example, Citri revolves around the graveyard, Rion revolves around the banished pile, and Quan revolves around the hand. And each of these effects can only be used during the main phase or the battle phase. Which means that if your opponent wanted to use something like Book of Moon in the draw phase, they are good to go. Because you cannot synchro in the draw phase. It's the very same thing as something like, think of Star Guardian and how TGs, people play around it by Book or Chalice in the draw phase. Or something like Witchcrafter, where you may see them flip down a Shemitah in the end phase or in the draw phase to prevent you from summoning out the Torrents like Madame Bear. And then that's what something you may see. So it's kind of the same concept here. However, the upside is that they are 1-card synchros, and they can summon some really good defensive, powerful synchros. So, Crystron Citry, during your opponent's main or battle phase, you can target one non-tuner monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but it has its effects negated, if any. And if you do, immediately when this card resolves, synchro summon using those 2 monsters, and banish those material. Okay, so into a machine synchro. So what we need to know is that you have to go into a machine synchro. But what makes this so good is you can make, generally, Amatrix. Now what makes Amatrix really, really good is that if this card is synchro summon, we'll go over Amatrix once we get to it. But the main thing is you summon a monster out of the graveyard, synchro summon immediately, and then you get to make your Crystrons, and when it comes out of the graveyard, the non-tuner is negated. However, if it's something like a Sangan and it activates when it's sent to the graveyard, it wouldn't apply because it gets banished. But if it's something that would apply if you banished it, then yes, you would get the effect after resolution of the whole effect. Alright, Rion. Rion is very, very powerful. Rion can target one of your banished non-tuner monsters, shuffle Rion and itself, that non-tuner, into the deck, and then special summon that synchro monster. Now, what's really good about Rion is that with Rion, it puts itself back in the deck, so it's a free resource to help you not run out of tuners, which is very useful, especially in the long grind game. So that's something you want to take into account in that factor. So that's really, really good. So keep that in mind. It also is the most common tuner to make when going into a Zectron. However, can be used with things like Amatrix with Parasaurol, and you will see that in some of the replays that I'm going to show you. And that is really good. Now, next we go over Turtle. So Parasaurol is the other Crystron that would activate when you destroy it, summon a tuner out of the deck. But in graveyard, it special summons a Crystron from the hand, and that is very useful. It's a very good play extended to discard off Self if they are going to book you and try to interrupt you. So it allows you to keep playing the game. And because of how Crystrons can generate 1-card synchro summons, it's very useful to play around them and make plays through Book of Moon and stuff like that if you were going to, and still be fine anyway. So that's still really good. Now, alongside that, we have Crystron Impact. Now, Impact is a trap. It targets one of your banished Crystron monsters, special summon it, and if you do, all monsters your opponent controls have their defense reduced to 0. And that's very good specifically against Triple D, because a lot of the times they will pendulum summon a bunch of monsters in defense, like Ragnarok and Doom King. But if you reduce them to 0, it makes them very easy to get over if you wanted to. It was also really good when this deck was tier 1 during Element Saber meta, and you could reduce Cocytus to 0s, main out of Cocytus. But that was one of the things that made Impact really special. But it's a very good card overall for the deck. And also, second effect, while it's in the graveyard, you could accept the turn it was sent, banish it, and negate a card that exactly targets a Crystron monster. Does that exactly target one, but targets a Crystron monster you control. So Book, Compulse, Crackdown, Chalice, you can protect. Oh, not Crackdown. Alright, let me go for Crackdown. There's a reason why Crackdown doesn't work. Now, the Crackdown doesn't work, similar to an effect of that rule back a while ago, which was Fiendish Chain. Now, the reason why you cannot impact a Fiendish Chain or a Crackdown is because it keeps activating. Now, the reason why that's relevant is because it says in the very same line, negate that effect. Now, the difference between negating an activation and negating an effect is when you negate the activation of a continuous card or a field spell, that card goes to the graveyard. So something like Magic Jammer negates the activation, right? Something like Solemn Judgment would negate the activation. I believe Savage Dragon does as well. Let me look it up really quick. Or something like Baron de Fleur. You get the point. And yes, Warlord Savage will also negate the activation. When you negate the activation of a card, it pretends that it never hit the field. It never hit the field. So the card just goes to the graveyard. If you negate the effect of a card, the card continuous still is in place on the field. So a continuous card like Crackdown or Fiendish Chain will still keep attempting to resolve. So because of that, what will happen is, Impact, you'll chain it, it will negate the effect once. Then it will attempt to resolve again, taking your monster in the terms of Crackdown, or a Fiendish Chain, negating the effect of a monster. So that was a way that a lot of Shiranui players used to dodge Quirion Gandrats, by running like triple Fiendish Chain. So that's something you wanted to know. So in terms of Crackdown, do not try to negate Impact. Crackdown with Impact, you're going to run into that problem. However, cards like Book, Compulse, or Chalice that have one initial effect, you're good. So just a little ruling help, just in case you didn't know that. Okay, now, onto the tech cards and onto the other play starters. So the other two cards we run at play starters are Genix Undine and Scrap Recycler. Wielder is kind of a play starter, I'll discuss it in a second. But Undine is very good, and Scrap because they dump a machine to the grave. Undine dumps a water, such as Eugenix Controller, and Scrap Recycler will dump any machine to the graveyard. Now, Scrap Recycler you might know, a lot of you TCG players may know because of Orchest, right? You dump Scrap, it's a heart bar, or you set up Scrap Wyvern to get into Scrap Recycle to dump Horror and go full combo, right? So a lot of you may know Scrap Recycler for that reason, but it's also really good in Crystron because you dump Solve into the grave. Sometimes you're dumping this Vern to banish the search Solve, and the reason why you want to do that is that's a way that can potentially bait your opponent to not DD Crow you if they want to wait on a Solve. That's a way that they may get baited out to not Crow, and if they don't Crow your this Vern, you can activate Solve out of the hand. Another reason you want to do that too is you want to set up Re-up Fodder. So if you dump this Vern first, you can banish this Vern to search Solve, and then get like a material banish for Rion to make him Zectron, which is useful in a lot of matchups to prevent yourself getting OTK. For example, like Rose Dragon, that's really relevant. So that's something you want to know. So that's something there. Another thing with Undine that's really important is Undine mills for cost. So obviously the mill comes first. So like if you summon Undine and you mill Solve, they can't negate that. They can't negate your mill of Solve. So for example, if your opponent would try to Fiendish Chain and Undine, they'd be negating the effect that searches your Genix Controller. So in ruling wise, there are two types of activations that go on. Not really activations, but part of an activation. So there's the cost and there's the effect, right? So the cost is what happens in order to meet the conditions to activate the effect. The effect is the actual effect of the card going through. So if you activate something like Fiendish Chain, you're negating the effect. You're not negating the cost. The cost will still resolve no matter what in a case like that. It's like Lightning Vortex. If you activate something like Magic Jammer on Lightning Vortex, you won't stop them from discarding said card to the graveyard. You'll stop them from destroying all face-up monsters on the field. Well, it's the same principle here, that Sulfepnir, or whatever water you're going to dump, that could be also Citadel Whale, is going to be dumped off of Undine as a result of the cost, not them negating it with Chalice or Fiendish Chain or whatever they're going to try to negate you with. So that's very important. Or they were going to use something like Warlord Savage Dragon on it or something like that if you're a TCG player and you understand that. So that's something there. So that's very important. The Gen X controller, if you draw one of it, unfortunately it's a brick in this build. If you run Labyrinth build, you can out-brick it, but it's really bad. But you could still shuffle Gen X back in the deck and do things with that. But it's used here as a play starter to dump yourself, your this turn, and also to dump Citadel Whale. Now what Citadel Whale does is, what we already went over it, but you can dump Citadel Whale off of this if you have full combo, and then be able to instantly set up your Sea Stealth attack. And Sea Stealth attack can be very difficult for your opponent to deal with, much in the way that opponents struggle to deal with secrets. It's less impactful, but it is still very difficult to deal with if they can't swing over any of your bodies and you just keep swarming bodies. It can be quite difficult to out, especially with the built-in like destruction protection. Also helps it to where it's harder to out. Okay, now that we discussed over that, let's discuss the final card in the main deck, which is two cards, which are Dark Hole and Wielder, the tech cards. Now, Wielder can also be seen as the play starter. If you control level 3 monster, you can special summon it. It is a tuner, and then you can synchro summon. That's basically what it does. Also, when it's sent to the graveyard, this is the main other reason you run it. You can target one monster with less attack than the monster that you synchro summoned and destroy it. Now this effect is extremely important, and it's the main reason why you play Wielder in the deck. And the reason is it creates another ruling thing, chain blocking. Now if you don't know what chain blocking is, it's when two simultaneous trigger effects attempt to activate at the same time. Now, if you're playing Master Duel or the TCG, you can decide the order. In duelings, you cannot. Okay? It's simplified rulings. However, with Wielder, it chain blocks it correctly. So what ends up happening is, let's say you make a Quarion Gandrax, right? And Quarion is a trigger effect. It will also work with Trishula. So if you want to make Trishula, you are good to do that as well. Or Black Rose Dragon, whatever. Although that's less common because we really don't play Rosenex in the deck. But if you wanted to make like a Trishula or Quarion, what you would do is you make Quarion using the Wielder, and then you activate Quarion to banish set whatever cards. We're going to go over its effect soon. And then you trigger your Wielder Chainlink 2. So Quarion attempts to activate first on Synchro Summon. Then Wielder will activate Chainlink 2, targeting a monster on the field, less than 3,000 attack, attempting to destroy it. Now, if your opponent wanted to use counter negate, or something that would negate a targeting effect, like this used to be very big in like the Super Heavy Samurai metas, like the Flutist eras, like when Flutist was meta. Steve and my boy was a Super Heavy Samurai god, as I am a Crystron god. So what you used to do is you pop a Crystron on the field. I mean, you pop their monster, and then because the last thing that happened is you popping their monster. I mean, not the last thing that happened. The first thing that happened is you popping their monster. They cannot chain Flutist to stop Quarion Gandrax, which is very relevant. They can negate you popping the monster, but they cannot stop you from going Quarion and banishing, which is very, very relevant in that matchup. Now, what is this useful for? Now, this is very useful against Mech Knights. And the reason why is you can synchro summon into Quarion, then on Chainlink 2, pop their Indigo, and then banish their field because they will not have anything in the secrets column. So they would have to play around Psychic Wielder, and it's very difficult for them to do so. So that's something you would use Psychic Wielder for. It could also be a side-up play starter if you open up this Vern, because you can normal Vern, special Wielder, go into Coral, and then activate this Vern to the graveyard to search Sylphepnir, discard another Crystron card, Pomp, and then set up Amatrix, which is the best thing to do at that point, unless you think you're really going to get sacked. You can go into Zectron with Rion, but Amatrix is really good because it can help protect your Coral Dragon, and then you can start controlling by popping things on the field that can be really annoying for your opponent to deal with. But that's pretty much the applications of Psychic Will. You could also Synchro Smiger to get impact, but that's less impactful. Yeah. Dark Hole is in here because it's excellent going turn 2. It could also start you up by popping your own this room, but also blows up their board. So things like Requiem or Infernoid boards that they don't open up Seer will get wiped. So it can also help you win the Infernoid matchup as well. So it's just fantastic. Okay, now we're going to go over the extra deck. Trish 0, Banish is a level 11. Banishes up to 3 cards on the field, does not target. Before we used to struggle to Lunalights, now we have 3 outs in the deck to Lunas, so this is very good. Just banish their Saber Dancer, banish whatever on the field, back row, monsters, whatever. Also, when it's destroyed, you can negate the effects of all monsters and summon Trishula out of the deck. So this was very common for Rose Dragons to do, but the Trishula float is very good here. Trishula is a level 9, very easy to make in this deck, especially Wielder. You cannot pop another card to summon a machine to make it, but you can still very easily gain access to this without using 2 tuners. Banishes 1 card from the field, hand, or graveyard, non-targeting. And unlike Necros or Trishula, you do not need to make all conditions. Quarion Gandrax is our boss monster, inherently. It's very good at doing so. 2 tuners plus 1 non-tuner. If this card is Synchro Summon, you can target monsters your opponent controls and enter a graveyard. Banish them up to 3. And then, when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target any banished monster as long as it meets the summoning conditions. You can't summon like a Deviati that hasn't been, you can't summon Deviati. Even if it's been properly summoned first, you still can't summon Deviati because it must be special summoned by its own effect. So you can then summon like one of your Crystrons back, or like in the old days they used to banish the Blue Eyes, take their Blue Eyes back, or an alternative because it already met its summoning condition. So there's cool things like that you can do. That's really, really good. Black Rose Dragon is very good, just nukes the board. It's kind of hard to make in this variant, but you can make it with like Sulf and Citry and then Black Rose in the field, so that's something you can do. Rosenex is very good. We don't have the room, but I might tech in a Rosenex because Rosenex is very good to use with this. And then make your Black Rose Dragon, so very nice. A lot easier, and then nuke the field. Coral Dragon is very good. You make this, and it also works with SSA, as does Trish 0, Trish, Crystron, Quarion, and Coral. So it allows us to go with SSA and Protect. And also, when it's destroyed, draw 1 card. When it's sent to the graveyard, it doesn't have to be destroyed. And also, you can discard 1 card, target 1 card in the field, destroy it. 1 in Zektron, this card is fantastic when it's Synchro Summoned. This turn, this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, so you take no damage. So it's an instant Kite Roid while it's on the field, Hollow Light Barrier. You don't take any damage and you can't destroy it, so it's very hard for your opponent. They cannot OTK through this. This used to be a 4 during Blackwing beta. And then 2 copies of Crystron Amatrix. This card is Synchro Summon. You change all monsters your opponent controls to defense. Now obviously Lynx cannot go to defense, so that's the case you want to probably make it Zektron. But where this is really good is when this card is destroyed, you can float to a Crystron for your graveyard. So really, really good. Alright, let's get to some replays. The reason why I kind of rushed through the synchros is because I don't want this video being like an eternity. So I'm going to go over 3 replays here. I am going to be climbing with this to comp. So if you do not want to miss me climbing with post-ban Crystron, follow me on Twitch. We are going to be doing that very soon. Probably within the next day or 2. So please, if you do not want to see that, please, 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 okay, follow me on Twitch. Okay, so this is a replay that's going to show you just how powerful Sea Stealth attack is. Alright, and how much of a force it can be once you get it into rotation.
The duel. My turn.
Alright, let me cut the volume because I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you the plays you want to make. So here he goes, Rocket Tracer, summons out 2 rockets by popping his quick launch with Tracer, so gets out 2 rockets, and turn 1 Nightmare. Now you might think, uh-oh, how am I adding a Nightmare and a back row? Well, I'm going to show you. We're going to start off with Scrap Recycler. We're going to dump the salt, as I said. Going to pitch the Thistfern, popping our Umi. And you may say, why aren't you popping salt? You discussed in your deck profile that you want to pop salt. Well, not in a case like this. Sometimes it's better not to pop salt because you want to keep it on the field. Because if I summon a tuner, he's just going to flip it down. But if I summon a Sulfethnier, it flips that down, we still float on destruction. So that's still quite good. So if you're wondering why I did that, that's why. And then we set 2 and pass. The one other thing I wanted to bring up that I did not bring up about Sea Stealth Attack is Sea Stealth Attack is like Crystal Conclave. So if you don't know how that works, you cannot use either its effects and its flip activation in the same chain. So it activating Umi is a part of its own chain. So you cannot activate like activating Umi and then both of its effects in the same chain. So what you want to do generally is if you think your opponent's going to disrupt you with like an MST eventually or try to get rid of it, what you might want to do is flip up SSA in the standby phase. So you activate it and then meet the first condition. If they have MST, they can banish it anyway. They can pop it then. But if they don't know, then it'll go to their main phase and then they'll miss out. So a lot of people don't know that rule. It's the same with like Crystal Conclave. So he goes ahead and swings over. We activate SSA. We're going to Umi. We know we didn't have a threat, so we can wait. Now we go into Paraciordal. Paraciordal could go ahead and summon Citri out of the deck. He's going to go ahead and flip that down, but we're going to chain SSA. Now, like I said before, we can banish a water monster and then make our SSA undestructible, but it also dodges us from disruption. Now, a really cool play you can do with the Crystron tuners is if you activate Sea Stealth Attack, let's say you activate Citri, right? And you chain a special summon a Crystron from the grave. You can activate Sea Stealth Attack in response to Citri activating its effect in Chain Link 2, banish the Citri, and what will happen is the Crystron will still attempt to synchro. You'll bring back like Sulfethnier from the graveyard if you have like a Samurai Destroyer in the extra deck, and then you will be able to have a Sulf on the field that can float, and you're going to get your Citri back at the end phase. So that's a very big brain play that you can make. Now, because of that, we activate our, we go ahead and summon our Smiger. And now, remember what I said, we contribute over 2 monsters to summon Whale. Now, we do not want to activate Whale's effect because I don't want to clog my back row here. So we're going to go Salt, pitching the Rion, popping the Lance. Now, what I could have did, something I realized, I could have activated Salt and then immediately chain Lance. And then we could have popped Lance to summon Salt. And then still had a second SSA on the field if I wanted to. So that was a play I could have made in that situation. So he goes ahead and pops, summons it out. We see Stealth Attack pop. And now we get a Citri. Now keep in mind, you may say, oh, you don't have room to synchro. You can't special summon a monster from the grave. Keep in mind, SSA can banish a monster to make room. Now this is very, very opposing to the opponent. For one, they cannot target our water monsters. We can Whale Protect. We also have a Sulfethnier on the field for floating. And we can also banish a monster to make an Amateur something. Excuse me. So this becomes very, very difficult. We also have an impact to use as well. So this becomes very difficult for the opponent to out. So they're going to make Booster Dragon. Booster Dragon's going to activate the effect. Magna Rocket's going to be able to non-target send monster to the grave. He's going to go ahead and summon back Silver Rocket and Dillingerous. Quick launch into a Rocket Tracer, make a Dark End. He's going to activate Dark End. We are going to go ahead and banish to prevent them from sending Self to the grave. He's going to go in the Borolo Dragon, which we are completely fine with. Now, we are going to chain Citri. He's going to go ahead and book it, which is fine. We're going to go ahead and not activate Scrap Recycler because it's not going to be able to activate the effect. It's negated. So we're going to go ahead and summon Thistfern and then bring back the Salt. So we're putting on a lot of pressure. We're going to go Reborn back the Citadel Whale, triggering the Thistfern to search the Smiger. Then we're going to go ahead and flip the Citri, activating the Salt to pitch the Smiger to summon out a Thistfern. We're going to make an Amatrix. And remember, now we cannot be targeted. He's gonna go ahead and we're gonna search his Miger impact first. We're gonna swing in, activate C Stealth Attack. Now C Stealth Attack is a clear out to Boral Dragon. C Stealth Attack does not target. It is non-targeting destruction, symbol of the Levian here. So we crash in the Borload, it's destroyed. Now he's in big trouble here. Now, we big brain. We activate SSA in the standby. Why? Because Boot Sector Launch will allow him to revive monsters from the graveyard up to the monsters we control. But if we banish one of those monsters, he can only summon one. So he top decks the Dragon Mirror, activates Tracer to pop the Dragon Mirror. Going to go ahead and summon the Magna Rocket, banishing 2 to summon out Borload Furious Dragon. So, Furious Dragon can target one card on the field, on his field, and one card on our own and destroy them. So DP at home. Alright, we're going to go ahead. He activates Hot Red to destroy our Citadel Whale. That's non-targeting, so we can blow it up. We're going to activate this turn, picking up another copy of Sulfepnir. Trigger the turtle in our graveyard to special summon Sulfep. Smiger will go ahead and pop to summon Rion. Activate another SSA to play around a potential, a potential way that he would have the first SSA. Then we're going to go ahead and swing in for the 18. And then go into our Rion and he scoops. Again, like I said, that is very difficult to play through. Once you get to that setup, there's not a lot they can do because they can't get over all that wall. We just drain them of his resources. And that's exactly what we did. Alright, this replay is against Water Exceed. And Water Exceed is a very, very problematic matchup generally because Dweller can stop Salt and all of our Crystron effects in the graveyard. So, I'm going to show you how we play this. We end up going first, but I'm going to show you how we beat him. Alright, so we have Scrap Recycler. We are going to go ahead and dump this turn, setting up the Powered Insectron. Remember, I told you in the deck profile that sometimes we want to dump this turn to set up an Insectron. So that's precisely what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to dump this turn, you're going to search Smiger. Now, the reason why we search Smiger is searching Impact is very good. We are able to get a copy of our Impact to our hand. So we're going to pop Salt, we're going to go ahead and summon Parasaurortal, pop Scrap Recycler, we're going to banish Smiger, and we're going to search Impact. Now, with Parasaurortal, you can set up a special summon in the hand, as well as Rion being able to tag into Insectron anytime we want. Now, what we do here is I want to wait to see the direction he goes. Now, if he makes an Abyss Dweller, it's his turn. He is always Chain Link 1 because he is the turn player. So, if he activates Dweller and we go into Insectron immediately, he's going to activate his Infantry as a Chain Link 1 and our Insectron will go 2 and will protect before Infantry can resolve to pop. And we also get that protection. So I can wait for him to go territory here. So he's going to go ahead and link into an Anemone. And he's going to go summon. The reason why I want to do this is I want to kind of see if he's going to go for Trish or not. And then develop my plays after that. Now we go in Zectron. He goes territory. He's going to make Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller will go ahead and detach. He has Dragoon so he can search a Megala. For follow-up, he's going to do it. Now we're going to go ahead in the end phase, activating our Impact. He is smart. He activates Dweller in the draw phase to pop the Crystron. But we can still follow up with a normal summon of Citry to threaten Amatrix on the next turn. So right now we're just going to try to make him burn out his territory activations. Goes into Infantry. We can negate. He does not have a Dweller activation on the field. So we can negate that. We have Impact. So what Impact will allow us to do is we can banish it and negate Infantry from popping us because it exactly targets one card. It targets a Crystron card. Now he goes ahead and makes Dweller. And at this point, we can Amatrix the new Dweller to defense. He's smart here. We're going to go into Amatrix. Now, I thought he targeted... Yeah, he did. Okay, so he targeted the Citry. That is very good. So he targeted the Citry. Had he targeted Insectron, we could have waited. But since he targeted Citry, we cannot wait. So now he goes Dweller. And now we are able to normal summon the Undyne that we just top deck. Special summon that Psychic Wielder. Because we control a level 3 monster, we can special summon it. we're going to make a copy of Coral Dragon, and we're just going to attack. And now he's out of territory activations, so he goes Diva into Diva and cannot do anything. And we beat Water. Okay, now, here's another replay. This is the last replay I'm going to show. I am going to do this all on stream. So if you want to learn to play this deck, please follow me, subscribe to YouTube, and follow me on Twitch, because I'm going to do a live client. This deck is very big brain. It's one of the hardest decks to learn. So if you time out, you are going to time out early on when you play this deck. I'm going to tell you. You are going to straight up time out. There are going to be points where you time out. Do not get frustrated. It's common. There are a lot of plays in this deck. There's a lot of direction. This is probably the deck that I think is the most complicated, complex to learn, because there's so many different lines of play that you could do. So if you start timing out, do not panic. It's all in the process of learning the deck. But once you become a master, you can start throwing your opponents off, because they're not going to know your plays. Now you go Parasaurus to summon a Rion. Against Rose, we want to make Rion, because if we go Amatrix, they could sack us with Rose, with Black Rose, Carrot, Wait, OTK. So we don't want to do that. Not with that, but they could Trish Zero into OTK. That's what I don't want. More than Trish Zero into OTK. Not Black Rose, because we'd float. But he could sack us with Trish Zero into OTK, so I don't want to do that. He's going to go Basil, and he's going to go Trish Zero. Okay, this is what's very important. White Rose would be able to dump Carrot here. Now, see? This is what I mean. If we go Amatrix, we lose. Okay? We go Amatrix. Well, we don't lose, but we're in a very oddball situation, which I'd rather go in Zektron here. Also puts the resources back in the deck. Alright, so he banishes and swings. So now, we Dark Hole. That's fine. Actually, yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. I know I'm getting a little bit confusing now, but that's what I wanted to bring up, because there's so many rulings going on here. When they go Trish Zero, we do lose if we go Amatrix. And the reason why is because we don't... Well, if they get 3 monsters on the field, we could assume they're going to Trish Zero. But if he puts 3 monsters on the board, we lose. Because he goes Trish Zero, and if we chain Citry to summon Amatrix, they're going to banish us before we can even do anything. If he goes Black Rose, it's fine. Like, if he goes Black Rose, set Basil, that's fine. But if they go Trish Zero, we lose. And the reason why is because if we go Amatrix in that scenario, we summon the Amatrix, but Trish Zero already resolves. Okay? So if we chain it to Trish Zero, it already resolves. So that means that he'll banish our Amatrix, summon Carrot Weight, and we lose. However, you say, okay, go into it before they make it. Well, then they make Trish Zero, they still banish us, and we lose. So that's why you set up in Zektron. If they can go Trish Zero, then we automatically lose. Amatrix is safe most of the time. If they're going to go Black Rose, set Basil, revive Black Rose, and then dump their level 1 into Carrot, then you're fine. But in this case, you're not. Alright. So now it goes Basil, revives, makes Samdi. Rion is going to go ahead and summon the turtle. Remember, I said this comes up. You banish the turtle, you summon Amatrix for the grind, and everything goes to defense. Samurai Destroy. Very good Amatrix here. So we're going to summon Coral. He's going to book. He's not going to let us make our Trish Zero, but he books the wrong card. So now that he booked that, we can make plays through him anyway. Even if he booked this, we could still make plays. We could still Trish Zero if we wanted to, but that's fine. We're going to make Smiger. Smiger is going to go ahead and pop itself. Summoning Rion, and with 2 tutors, we are going to go for Quarion. Quarion's going to go ahead and banish everything. He doesn't have a machine to revive. We just search, and he has had enough. And we outplay Rose Dragon. So the key there is in Zektron. It's Zek. And it's not always correct to set Impact turn 1. Sometimes I don't like to set impact there because if you set impact and they go into Trish 0, then what's going to end up happening is they just banish your impact. And if you chain to summon something, then they just banish whatever you chain to summon. Sometimes it's better, like for book follow-up, you would discard the impact for like a soul follow-up, and that's very good as well. So that's really good. So those are the replays I'm going to show you now. I will show you a few more on stream. Follow me on Twitch. The link will be in the description below. This video is already 45 minutes long, so I don't want to go too long on the video. That's why I'm not going to extend this out. But until next time, Sean Matrai signing out.